Ray's Quest, Body and Mind
Good
presents.
evening. My name is Ray Dwyer. I'm your host tonight. I'm hosting Dr. Joe Dispenza's meditation and book discussion group. Tonight, we're discussing Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, Chapter 2, Overcoming Your Environment. There's three centers in the lower body. The lowest one is called the body, the perineum. The second one is called uh, is generally the environment, and the third, the solar plex, is generally related to time. Now, what's interesting is that he starts with the second energy center. I wonder if how many other people were curious about that. Why not just go one, two, three? My basic male self would just go one, two, three. But Dr. Joe doesn't care. He puts the most important one first, and that's the environment. And it's interesting is that it's also a short chapter. So we were able to have a nice introduction before I went on air. And there's some very important things about the environment that we'll be talking about. And some of them are subtle. Some of them took me a while to find the value of. But let's begin. I'm going to start with the first paragraph because it kind of defines. By now, I trust that you're beginning to accept the idea that the subjective mind has an effect on the objective world. You might even be keen to acknowledge that an observer can affect subatomic world and influence specific events just by collapsing a single electron from a wave of energy into a particle. At this point, you may also believe the scientific experiments in quantum mechanics I've discussed, which prove consciousness directly controls the tiny world of atoms because those elements fundamentally are made of consciousness and energy. That's quantum physics in action. The part that I want you to really grasp in that little paragraph is the part where the observer affects the subatomic particles and collapses a wave into a particle. This is no longer just woo-woo. This is the science of the quantum model, which is what Dr. Joe has modeled his teachings about. It is through observation that we collapse the energy field into reality. Yes, you are the creator of your world. We'll go into that very bold statement as we go. How can my mind influence bigger events in order to change my life? How can I collapse electrons into specific events called in a new experience that I want to embrace in some future time? Really? I mean, if science says I have the ability to observe the field into my reality, how do I do that? That was just mind blowing when I first read this book. It's like talking about reading science fiction. My goal is that you understand not just knowledge, but that you understand and can see in action how there might be a scientific basis for accepting that your thoughts can create your reality. This is the techiest meditation group you'll ever find anywhere. I'm telling you. For doubters, though, I would like you to entrain the possibility that the way you think directly affects your life. Now, we admit that the way I think affects my life. We know that. Um, you get a very loving person, and you can feel that person when he walks up to you. You just like him. And have you ever had somebody walk up to you and it just makes you want to growl inside because there's something angry and hateful in them, and your body goes, step back? We affect the world about us. We do. But we do it unconsciously, not deliberately, just reactively. How would you like to learn to do it consciously, creatively, deliberately? Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. I'm on page 40. And maybe you think about your problems so much because it was your thinking that created them in the first place. It's not hard to imagine that we make a mess of in our heads and our life gets messed up. So we're creating a messed up life, right? We kind of accept that. But can we create a life consciously, creatively, and deliberately? Perhaps troubles feel so real because you constantly revisit those familiar feelings that initially created the problems. If you insist on thinking and feeling equal to those circumstances in your life, you will reaffirm that particular reality. As you run these scripts of trauma in your mind, you are preparing yourself to
Hi
relive
YouTube,
those.
just wanted to let everyone know that Ray's actually a pedo. He caught him with a 2-year-old boy the other day.
Hey, dude, stop it. Seriously, leave him alone.
Okay, I got a video editor, so I'm not too worried about it. The good news is that once I push that button, they don't get back in. So they only get one shot at me. So anyway, so
It's fine though, guys. I only get one shot at him, so it's all good. Jack, shut your mouth, mate. Hello, editor. Ray's.
oh, he's good. I wonder how many times he's entered. Well, I wonder if he's just getting it. Well, no, it remembers his phone number. Okay, so anyway, most people focus on three things in life: their environment, their bodies, and time. In this chapter, we're going to talk about the second energy center, the environment. Let me start with the discussion on the energy center, general discussion. Dr. Joe calls them energy centers and not chakras for a reason. The primary reason is that the word chakra is generally associated with a lot of religious innuendos. Not right, not wrong, that just is. And Dr. Joe wants to separate himself from any of that limitations. So, because people have preconceived ideas what that word means. So Dr. Joe just calls it an energy center. But what makes energy center the right term? Well, what I found out, and you'll learn later in these books, is that these centers are not etheric. They're actually neural networks in the body, specialized little brains, if you may. Really. This is not the only brain you got. This is the master cortex. This is the master memory. But you have these other centers in your body that have neural networks that have specialized thinking and are specialized awareness in them. You really do. And they're actual physical neural networks. They're not imaginary. They're not floating out in space. They're real. So they really are energy centers. So I wanted to get that clear. That was a big deal for me to learn. So I wanted to make a point. If you want to change, you must have in your thoughts an idealized self. One of the things that I've talked to people is they talked about meditating and seeing themselves healing. You'll hear me correct yourself if you talk to me about it, because I'll say you don't talk about healing. You talked about an idealized self as being healed, like a GPS. When you punch your address into a GPS, you don't tell yourself I'm going on the GPS. You say I'm going from here to there, and the GPS will figure out how to get there. Your map. Well, that's a little bit like what this is, because you start with being honest of who you are. and you give yourself an idealized self in your intention, which we'll talk a lot about over this year, and the energy field, your healing system, the field, let's just call it that for now, will route a path for you, and you'll draw it to you. You'll understand as we go further in it. You must have in your thoughts an idealized self, a model that you can emulate, which is different from the better than the you now in your particular environment, body, and time. Every great person in history knew how to do this. In this chapter, we'll focus on how you can overcome your environment and lay some groundwork for the 2 chapters that follow, your body and time. Before we begin talking about how did this happen? I can only answer that by talking about the brain. Okay, so tell us that the brain is organized to reflect. The brain is a reflection. Everything we know in our environment. When you think of something, what are you doing? You're calling something back that was to your consciousness. That's like a reflection, standing in front of a mirror. That reflects back at you. Your mind is reflecting a memory of the past. All the information that we have been exposed to throughout our lives in the form of knowledge and experience is stored in the brain's synaptic connections. When you think of something, it's like looking at a picture in a book. That's not good, that's not bad, that's just how it is. That's how this memory system works. That's our external environment. As a consequence of the nearly automatic response, we begin to think and react equal to our environment. So our environment is given responses, our survival mechanism is giving us sensory inputs, and we react to it to adapt to it. And that adaptation, Dr. Joe calls being equal to our environment. That's how we survive. That's what we do. We adapt to our work, we adapt to our home, we adapt. That's being equal to your environment. When it's rain, we get out of the rain. That's adapting to the environment. That's being equal to it. In a hostile environment, you get strong, you get protective. That's adapting to it. Okay? That's what he's talking about. If your thoughts determine your reality and you keep thinking the same thoughts, then you will continue to produce the same reality. Thus, your internal thoughts and feelings exactly match your external thoughts. That's adapting to reality. Over on the next page, page 43. You may not think that your environment and your thoughts are that rigidly similar and your reality so easily reproduced, but when you consider that your brain is a complete record of your past and your mind is the product of your consciousness, in one sense, you might always be thinking in the past. Someone who is suffering from trauma is echoing that past all the time. There's an in-your-face example of it. But even if you're had a blessed life and things have been very pleasant for you, you're still echoing all those pleasantries. You're living in the past. By responding with the same brain hardware that matches what you remember, you're creating a level of mind that is identical to the past. For those who have trauma in the past, they're creating trauma in their body, and their body's like this, and their cortisol and their insulin and their adrenaline is flowing. They're living that past that could have been 20 years ago. That's not a bad thing. That's adaptation. That's survival, making sure you don't do it again. What we're learning to do is put it away. So that when you sit, you can be creators of your life. Reason this, when you think from your past memories, you can only create past experiences within you. You could be on vacation somewhere, pleasant. For me, it would be sitting on the beach somewhere, enjoying the crashing waves. I love that sound. And if I lit that stuff in me, my body may be sitting on the beach, but in me would be turmoil. I'd be reliving those lives. So the goal is to not live in my past. And I've learned how to do that. I've healed all those things. Well, most of them anyway. Let's not get too ahead of mine. I don't walk on water. I still have to work at it. Okay. Page 45. There is a principle in neuroscience called Hebb's law. It basically states that nerve cells that fire together wire together. Man, if you hear anything from Dr. Joe in a conference, you will hear him say Hebb's law at least once, almost every time, because it's such an important principle. Because things that associate, things that, let me give you a layman's example. You ever had an expression, well, that just blew my mind? Well, if you have a trauma, let's say you're driving down the road, having a nice day, and blam, somebody side swipes you and bangs into you. Boom, you've traumatized. Hebb's law says things that fire together, wire together. You have one event, that's the trauma, but you're driving a red car, you're wearing a green shirt, the car that hit you was black, you know, the music was loud, and you could smell smoke from outside. Now, every time one of these things happen, you're going to rehearse that accident. You'll throw away the shirt you were wearing. You'll probably have to buy a different car, and when you do, it'll be a different color. You know, all these things, and you'll try to eliminate these things so that you don't rehearse this. That's Hebb's law. I call it just blowing your mind, because when you blow your mind, you have these things tied, and you've got to start letting go of these things out here so that you can let go of this. I had a few funny ones that I used to, these things would react and I just get all stressed out because I didn't understand how this very mundane thing could cause an inner reaction in me. I just didn't understand it until I got Dr. Joe's work in me. But that associates with everything. Broken heart, loss of a job, whatever. And you get these things, and now, what about, here's a funny one. What about guys who are into football, and so they have their famous jersey they like to watch the football game, because when they wear their jersey, their team wins. It's the same thing. So when he talks about hard wiring, he's talking about Hebb's law. He's talking about these ties to that. You'll become neurologically attached to the conditions in your life. In time, you'll begin to think in the box, because your brain will fire a finite set of circuits that then create a very specific mental signature. This signature is called your personality. I had trauma, military trauma, and I had a set of circumstances that would set that off. And this picture became a model of my personality. Why is that important? Because we think we have personalities that are who we are. Guess what? Not necessarily so. Let me give you the outline that we'll cover in different chapters of this book and other books. First, you gain knowledge, and as you rehearse that knowledge, it becomes a belief. After you rehearse that belief for a while, it becomes an attitude. I'm sorry, I got to reverse. First, it becomes an attitude. And as you rehearse and live that attitude, it becomes a belief. And as you rehearse and that belief ties to this belief, ties to this belief, and you put it together and it makes a big picture. And now it's your personality. So this personality all started from gaining knowledge that you rehearsed and rehearsed. That's what your personality is. So why is that important? Because you can change this by changing your knowledge. Yep, you can. I've lived it. And that was a hard nut to crack. You could call this a rut. where you're running around in circles. And we all fall into them, but it goes much deeper than that. Not just your actions, but also your attitudes and your feelings become repetitive. You have formed the habit of being yourself and becoming, in a sense, enslaved to your environment. This book is called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. It starts with new knowledge, and you rehearse that new knowledge. You practice that new knowledge. And in time, it all adds up, and you will break the habit of being yourself. It starts with knowledge. In a very real way, you have become an effect of circumstances outside of yourself. You have allowed yourself to give up control of your destiny. Unlike Bill Murray's character in the movie Groundhog Day, did anybody else love that movie? I thought that was the funnest movie. You're not even fighting against ceaseless monotony on what you like and what your life has become. Worse, you aren't the victim of some mysterious unseen force that is placed. You're in a repetitive loop. You are the creator of that loop. The good news is that since you created that loop, you can choose to end it. All right. That is my point that I wanted to say. Let's talk about Groundhog Day. And let's talk about some of these other points that I pointed out. Did you know that you create the circumstances in your life? Did you know that you have the ability to collapse energy waves and create your life? There are some very, very bold statements in that first part of this chapter. Anybody want to make a comment about that?
Ray,
Raise your
maybe
hand. Raise your hand, please, because we got plenty of people here, and that way we don't talk over each other.
also I mute everybody, Ray, because we have some disruptions, so people can raise their hands, then I can unmute them.
Okay, thank you, Patrice. Oh, and for everybody's knows, Patrice has been with me for a while, and she says, "Can I help this year?" And I said, "Sure." So I'm making Patrice my co-host, and she's a real sweetheart. If she says something, it's generally worth listening. Generally, it's always worth listening to. So thank you, Patrice. So anybody got any comments about this chapter so far? I'm interested. This is the discussion part. This is what makes a blah, 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 just reading a text interesting. So talk to me. There you are, Franza. Unmute. Go ahead. Can you hit the unmute, Rosa? There you go.
Thank you. I think we have a gentleman who keeps on going on Oscar.
Yeah. Yeah, every now and then I get somebody who just wants to play.
Yeah. So my when you say we create our own lives, what comes in my mind is children. So you know how some children, they are born and then they have cancer, or they are in a lot of poverty. So I'm like, maybe that is their life's path. But then my mind is resistant that no, we don't create our lives. We don't create our reality. Otherwise, how would bad things happen to children?
Wow. I meditated on that for a while, and it's a heartache of a story. The foundation of the answer is kind of hard. We are not this expression. One of the hardest lessons of this work is for me to understand this that you see is not me. This what you see is an expression of my energy. So my energy is a electric energy being, and it's eternal, always was, always will be. Why some are born in this life in poverty and hardship, sickness. It sounds terrible for me to say, but that's part of the design. The ocean has water, and the ocean's water goes up. Some of it lands in a beautiful river and flows back to the ocean. Some of it lands on mountaintops and freezes and never again returns to the ocean in hundreds of years. Some of it lands in swamps and goes stagnant. One thing that is always, always true is that all of it is still the ocean. Why some is hard and the others are easy, that's way above my pay grade. I couldn't possibly answer that. It's just that that's part of the design. Also, everything that I've learned says that for somehow we know what we're getting into when we go into this life. And that seems to apply real happily when you're talking from a nice Western civilization. It's hard to see that when you're talking from nations that are in war and that never see peace, never see anything but advent poverty of the hunger every day of their life. It's easy to see in this place, but somewhere I know it's all water and it's all part of the ocean. I don't know if that's anywhere near a sufficient answer for that really sensitive question, but that's the best I got. Anna, I see your hand up. Anna?
I've been extra fascinated this week about collapsing the wave function. And in fact, shall I say reverse engineering? Because if it's really true, this quantum physics, that it's all space and energy until we observe, and then it turns into matter. I'm looking around going, okay, I'm constantly seeing matter, the chair, the table, the refrigerator. And so I must be on the already collapsed the wave function part. And I've been playing with getting at the cause end of it versus the effect end of it. I've been playing with, okay, living in the infinite field of all possibilities. And it's all space and energy, and being at the inception point of choice, and then allowing reality to collapse into matter. And I'm getting on the step one knowledge side. I'm playing with step two in the practice side. And yet I welcome your insight, having had some big healing experiences, some big touch points with the oneness. How on a daily level can we effectively play with being at the uncollapsed place of energy and space? What's
Wow.
what's an effective way to play there, to flip the coin in our favor?
That's jumping in the deep end. What's interesting is that overcoming your environment is probably one of the shortest chapters in this book, and I have found it's the diamond in the rough. There's the environment is where the action is. Let me explain. In the next book, in the placebo, the placebo is defined as the control. The doctor walks in and says, I'm the doctor, and and he offers the red pill. So the doctor is called the control. The red pill is called the element. And then he tells you how wonderful this red pill is, and it's going to give you all these things. That's the message. Then he sells it on to you, and that's the emotion. This is all Storyland. This guy, the doctor, what makes the doctor coming in? If some guy came in a t-shirt and jeans and offered you the red pill, do you think this stuff would have the same power as that stuffy guy with his clipboard and deep voice and a white star? Do you think it would have it? No, because his presentation, he creates an environment just by walking into that little clinic room, right? I mean, he walks in and everybody's head goes, listening intently to every word, every gesture he does. He is the creator in the environment. That's why it works. Let's say you're going to church and you could stay home with your little kiosk with your symbols on it and sit and pray. But is it the same as going into that cathedral, that multi-million-dollar cathedral, where it's had millions of souls giving their energy into it, walking into that in that building has an environment that just being there elevates your mind. And the messages of all the icons in the building, the statues, the candles, the pictures, all seem to have more impact. Why? Because of the control, the environment. This little chapter is about the environment. As you learn to go into awareness in the space, as you learn to go into space, which is the awareness of your mind, and control that awareness, that's what the first energy center meditations are all about. You can go from center to center. What you're doing is learning to control your awareness, your environment. As you learn to practice that environment and move from your beta thinking into alpha, consciously, creatively, deliberately, and just open it up. And now you're out of the analytical mind. You're not choosing, analyzing, thinking, pointing. You are listening. You'll hear me say listening throughout the year. Why? Because listening is a unique sense, because it's spatial. When you see, you look in that. When you taste, it's right there. When you touch, it's right there. When you smell, it's right here. But when you listen, it's out here. And the listening part is in a different place of your head back here. It sits right next to the cerebellum. Listening is spatial. It's a good place to begin. So you go back and you move out of thinking, you move out of sensory input, and you go into listening, and you move into space, and you move that space into your first energy center. And this way you begin to be spatial in your character. Now, in that space, as you get past the induction, which is the beginning and the centering and the stuff, you move into this space and you move out of the first exercise of meditation. And this is where your intention starts playing. You should always have an intention in the back of your mind. I used to write it on my whiteboard. My little symbol, we'll talk about later. And so when you go into that space, you lit the light of that intention into you, and you become that idealized self of that intention. We'll go into the details of what that means. And in doing that, we talked about it last week once. There is the vision, and there is viewing something in your mind, getting a vision of it. And I like the word envision to express what I see in my creative self. I envision my perfect health. It isn't because of something I remember I saw. It's because I drew up in me an image that is unique, and I envision it and I electrify it. And I wear that perfect idealized image. It could be a successful job, could be a successful relationship. But that's kind of how that goes.
I think we have another bot in the room. This Jenny is an AI bot, I think. You may want to kick her out too. At any rate, thank you, Ray. What I'm getting in relation to your doctor analogy, for instance, it's like, say a doctor says, you've got cancer. That doctor is collapsing the wave function into one particular possible matter. And what you're inviting us, and all these teachings are inviting us to do, is to step out of that singular collapsing of the wave function, especially if you don't like what's occurring, whether you created it or somebody else. It's like, oh, go back into space, go back into energy, go back into awareness, go back into the infinite field of all possibilities, and choose what you do want from the infinite buffet, and then focus on that. Hence you're ready with your letter, with your vision at any time, is a sense of what I'm getting anyways.
That's pretty good. That's a pretty darn good discussion of it. I like that. Very good. Because you want it to be idealized. You don't want, in other words, you don't want to be good enough. I mean, if you're going to go for it, pick that point on your GPS and say, that's where I want a vacation. And you put that on. And remember, it's an environment. It's not an idea. It's not a picture that you put over here. I was trained like with some of these positive memories, and I used to put a picture on the wall. I'm going to do that. That's all this. And I never understood that I didn't change this to help me get there. What Dr. Joe is teaching is put that idealized self on, become that the best you can. As you turn to it, that energy will turn to you. So you've got two energy forces that we'll talk about in great deal as we go through this. There's the intention is a signal that you send out to the universe. This is my dream. This is this. And your heart is an energy that draws it back. That's why later we'll have a little symbol where you put two circles around it. One is for the mind energy and one is for the heart energy. You put out your intention and then you draw it back with your heart. I never knew how to do my heart until I did this, and I let my heart break that day I had my healings. You know, tears. I was laying on my ears were wet. I was tearing so much. You know, Mr. Tough Guy was on the floor going, all by myself right down there. It really did happen. We must change our state of being. That's it. If it's just a picture in your mind, you haven't changed your state of being. The idea is to get this in your heart where you change. Dina, I see your hand up. Thank you for being patient. Your mic, please. You got your mic, Dina. Well, you can't undo it? Do I have to do that? Try it again.
Oh, yeah. Now it works.
Hello,
I don't know
Dina.
what happens.
I know who you are, Dina.
Hello, everybody. I just wanted to add something, and you
You
just
recognize
get
this?
into. Oh,
This is the hat I normally wear.
I will see in Dallas.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just wanted to add a small thing. I wanted it before, and you did explain it. But anyway, I want to add about. So we change this energy and we collapse our frequency all day, every day. But we do it unconsciously, without the intention. And very often we just drive by the emotions, right? When we're doing this work, we just learn beyond this because we change our autonomic nervous system. We balance it differently, and we kind of control our emotions. We switch our attention focus, we switch our energy. The interesting thing that it's about quantum physics, when we change it, we actually become different personality. We don't change our environment. Everything is the same, but our reactions are completely different, and we can say, oh, we actually live in different dimension. Everything is changing because our focus are on something else, or something that actually brings joy, love, happiness in our life. And we know when we're challenging, we can again do the same exercises. We're overcoming more easily. That's all that I wanted to add.
Yes, it's we create the circumstances about us by our attitudes and our energy. We draw the people to us who we are. When we change who we are, we change our environment, we change our friends. It happens all the time. Okay, let me continue now. Thank you. Thank you, Dina. Dina's a friend from the beginning of my work. She's a sweetheart. Georgia, can I get to you in a few minutes? Okay. As a common thread, they all had a dream, vision. They're talking about the great people of our age. Joan of Arc, Mahatma Gandhi, You know, all these people, they had a dream and they paid a price, committed to the dream. They behaved as if what they envisioned was already in reality. You know, just you get into that vision, into your environment, and can you let it affect you so that as you sit here, you feel as if you've changed something chemically in you changes because your energy changes. Bottom of page 48. The greatest individuals in history were unwaveringly committed to a future destiny without any need for immediate feedback from the environment. They were committed to their vision and they let their mind change and they adjusted who they were. I have a dream. How many people have heard that? And he committed his life to that dream and he touched the whole society through that dream. It's wonderful. It works. It changed me and it's changed many people who get this and learn to create an environment in their mind. What if early in this, I used the word wonder many, many times. I wonder because I was looking for input. I didn't know. And so I allowed myself to go into the space and get quiet and wonder. Another fundamental element shared by each of these celebrated beings was that they were clear in their minds about exactly what they wanted to happen. This isn't about wishful thinking. This isn't about looking through a catalog and says, I want one of those, I want one of those. Oh, that would be nice. That's not what we're talking about. When one holds a dream independent of the environment, that's greatness. Coming up, we'll see that overcoming the environment is intrinsically linked to overcoming the body and time. In Mahatma Gandhi's case, he was not swayed by what was happening in his outer world, the environment. He didn't worry about how he felt and what would happen to him, the body. And he didn't care how long it would take to realize his dream. Time. Those are the three lower energy centers that the first part of this book is about. We're about learning how to become creators of our environment, our body, and our time. Mental rehearsal. This is where knowledge becomes active. Neuroscience has proven that we can change our brains and therefore our behaviors, attitudes, and beliefs just by thinking differently. In other words, without changing anything. Through mental rehearsal, repeating, performing an actions, the circuits in the brain can recognize themselves, can reorganize themselves to reflect our objectives. We can make our thoughts so real that the brain changes to look like the events has already become a physical reality. We can change it to be ahead of any actual experience in our eternal world. Now, I don't know about you, but that was really hard for me to understand the first few times I read it. First of all, I had to overcome my education. My education said that we were born and grew and had a fixed neural network in our brain, and it just kind of rewired like memory chips. That is not correct. Science now knows, not guesses, knows that the brain disconnects neurons and reconnects neurons on a regular basis. Not once in a while, regularly. As you learn something new, you connect new neurons. And as you push something out of your mind into forgetfulness, that old neuron fades into barely connectivity. Now, science has shown that you never forget anything. but it's out of the mainstream traffic of your brain. So you do change your mind when you deeply learn something new and you rehearse it into the memory of your body. I thought that was really cool. The other thing is that by rehearsing it, we can change ahead of time our experience. How can we have a real deep experience before the event happens just by thinking about it? We do it all the time. Think about the day before Thanksgiving. Oh my goodness, I am crazy with hunger for the turkeys and the dishes that are cooking in the kitchen. I am eating. I love Thanksgiving dinners. Got that sweet potato casserole, I have green bean casserole, roasted turkey. It just falls apart. I love that meal. I overheat. Oh my goodness. Oh yeah, I'm living in the future days before it happens. So we do this all the time. Think about worry. We're worried about something that's going to happen at work. We're living an event that you think might happen tomorrow. Ahead of time. We do this all the time. Our goal here is to consciously, creatively, decisively choose our environment in ourselves. We are here to break the habit of being ourselves. And we are here to learn how to do it. Knowledge. And I'm telling you, you can do it. You do the work, you'll get the promise. It really is technical and scientific, factual stuff. This isn't woo-woo. This is the most non-woo-woo meditation you'll ever learn from anybody. There's no guru sitting on a pillow going, oh, we're working. Everything we do, from the energy center meditation to the breathing, is designed to do something in you so that you can get free of the things that you're holding on to, so that you can be free. Whether we physically or mentally acquire a skill, there are 4 elements that we all use to change our brains. I like the way he said that. We literally change our brains. We learn knowledge. Knowledge creates networks. Receive hands-on instructions, knowledge, skill. Paying attention, those knowledge networks start building. Repetition, more and more, builds pathways. Learning is making synapses. Learning is literally making new synapses. Have you guys seen that video where Dr. Joe is showing the active real-time connection where the neural networks kind of go like this and they actually start connecting in as they learn something, and another one up here is breaking apart because it's forgetting that one? We're not doing this anymore. We're going to start doing this. And you literally are watching one set of neural networks disconnect and another set of neural networks kind of like feelers connect and find each other. Oh, that's amazing to me. The participants who mentally rehearsed also followed this formula, except they never got their bodies physically connected. You can do this without doing anything because your mind and your body don't really care what's going on out here. If this is living it, your body's experiencing it. Remember, after these subjects repeatedly mentally practiced, their brains showed the same neural change as participants who actually did it. When we can change our minds independent of the environment and then steadfastly embrace the ideal with sustained concentration, the brain will be ahead of the environment. We will be experiencing it before the environment, our outer world, actually has it. But there's a key here that I was slow to pick up. When we can change our minds independent of our environment and then steadfastly embrace is a heart term, the ideal. When you see that ideal and you just let your love go for it. Oh, that would be so cool if I could do that. I just love the idea. Oh, that feels good. If I could have that job oh, I could work and I could contribute to my community and I would be great. I would learn new stuff. That would be so exciting to have that job. Let your heart express it. If it's just a picture on the wall, you're not drawing it back to you. It's just a picture on the wall. Our mind is full of pictures. Don't try to make it something that you see out the front of your mind. Make it be something you create in your awareness. This is the environment. This is your energy field. You are an energy being with a field. You are, not maybe, you are an energy being and you have a field about you. By going into awareness and creating, drawing out of the infinite potential, that which resonates with your heart, you create a resonant field and it starts changing you neurologically, physiologically, genetically. We'll go into that later, but it's really true. You really do. To understand that neurological change can take place in the absence of physical interactions in the environment, it is crucial to our success in breaking the habit of being a self. Understanding what we're doing is part of the power in what we're doing. Because understanding, you got knowledge, it says, yeah, okay, I memorized this list of things. If you don't understand the dynamics of that, then it's just a list in your mind and it will fade in the background. Understanding it means, okay, I know how to use this knowledge now. What my next step is to build networks in my brain, rehearse it and rehearse it and rehearse it until it adjusts my attitude. As it adjusts my attitude and I rehearse it and rehearse, I start believing in it because I'm starting to see those serendipitous things that happen when your attitude changes. And as you build beliefs, your reality, your personality changes. And as your personality changes, you change your reality. It works that way. Last page, page 52. In fact, the more you formulate an image of your behavior in a future event, the easier it will be for you to execute a new way of being. That's the answer. The more you find this place back here, and we'll do it for the rest of this year as we go through the 3 books, Breaking the Habit, You're the Placebo, and Becoming Supernatural. We will be going into space again and again and again and again. And it will become common practice for you to go into space, move out of beta into alpha, adjust your breathing, and live, experience that future ideal self. That's what this key is about. I'm going to tell you ahead of time. The first few chapters of this have very specific names. There's the introduction is chapter 1, the environment is chapter 2, the body is chapter 3, the time is chapter 4, chapter 5 is a review, chapter 6 is more about the heart and learning to open it up. Chapter 7 begins the rest of the book. And I couldn't tell you the real title of chapter 7 because I renamed it. If it's so easy, then why is it so hard? Because by the time we're done with this, you're going to go, well, I've learned all this stuff, right? But I can't do it. I just can't let go. That's what the second half of this book is about. That stuff that you spent your life holding on to and justified with good reason. I mean, you need to be careful. There are people out there that will hurt you. It's fair game to be a little stressful when you're around them or if they're in your life. There are some jobs out there that are hard to do, stressful. I understand that. I'm a pretty good realist about things like that. What this is about is that when you come home, can you look around and see that you're safe right now? That your house is at peace right now? And with that, can you learn to let it go right now so that your body can have a little bit of time to heal instead of being like this all the time? I could not do that. I was wired 24/7, and that's probably what, in fact, I'm pretty confident that was what finally broke my body, was that it just got tired of just being all the time. And I had to learn to change this. Okay. That's a quick walk through this chapter. And we talked about some magical things. I'd like to get your input on the environment. And Georgia, the last I saw, your hand was up. If you'd like to be first, I'm happy to hear from you.
Sure. Can you hear me now?
I hear you now.
Yes.
Awesome. Hi everyone, how you doing? I have a question about the vision. So I really love your GPS, the Google idea, because I'm pretty new to this area, and so I knew where I wanted to go, like you say, but I needed help to get there. What I find is that I have a lot of fears of dreaming big. Like I've had big things happen in my life, but I, for some reason, can't hold on to those as a say a guide for the next big things. So it's like there's where you were talking, I think about Gandhi. You mentioned like they have the clear vision of the future that they want. I feel like just like people mentioned earlier with the heart, where I couldn't feel my heart last year. That's how I feel about these big visions. Like I know I should be able to do it. I know other people. I know logically and physically that I'm capable, but I just can't seem to do it.
Knowing
So I
that you're
can do little
capable,
things.
yeah,
Yeah,
knowing,
little
okay,
things, but not the big ones.
right. Knowing that you're capable is a very good first step because that means it's possible to you. You just haven't learned how. I didn't know I was capable, but let's start with, I know I can, I just can't. What you do, just like you said, you've already have decided in your mind, your GPS, that's my destination. How do I get it in my heart where my heart responds and goes, oh, that would be so good. I just already feel it and I love it. How do I get there? First of all, that hard word called practice. You just go in you don't do this. You don't project it out. That is all using your past memories and creating a reflection of your past on that picture. Your future self could look similar, but don't use this to project. In your awareness, as we practice this, and it's a practice, took me a while, it's a practice, you go into the awareness, and you go, let's say you have a hard time, you don't understand awareness. Took me a while I'm aware of things, but to do it consciously. Go into this and go into hearing, like as if you're sitting on a bench at a park bench, and you just want to listen to the forest about you. You close your eyes and you listen to the forest about you. It's a really beautiful experience. You can hear trees working, you can hear squirrels running, you can hear birds chirping. But when you do that, everything else in your body gets relaxed. That's why a walk in the forest, walk in the woods is so relaxing because you're moving out of that sensory stressed mind into awareness. It just naturally does because you want to hear the forest. So you kind of just walk with your eyes half closed, or you just sit on the park bench and close your eyes, and you experience the awareness of life about you. That's the secret of why a forest walk is so sweet. So now in that awareness, call up your GPS image. I want that for my future self. And you start putting it together. Now, I didn't have my future self in a whole picture when I started. I had a word that I thought, I know what that word means, and that word would be pretty cool. And I put the letter on my whiteboard, and I started listing my feelings and my look like on it, like Dr. Joe teaches. We'll go into that later. And it took me a long time to develop the image of what that was. You are now seeing me in progress to that. This is an unexpected journey that got me on that path to becoming what I thought I wanted to be. That's why I just do this so with a sense of humor. It's like, I asked for this. I didn't know it. And so you put this on and you just, what would it feel like to be that? And now your mind is going to go pop in and out, pop in and out. That's as normal, because your analytical mind will want to examine anything new that passes through it. So it takes quite a discipline, work, and practice to go into the awareness and stay there for any given time. And when you pop out, don't make a big deal out of it. It's part of the human experience, because anything unfamiliar, this guy wants to check out. So as you do this again and again, you will become familiar with resting in space, resting in awareness. And as you become familiar with resting in awareness, you will have longer and longer times that this guy won't want to get in charge. You with me? So everything you said was spot on, Georgia. The hard thing comes as this future intent gets closer and you start going, I can really do this. Right now, it's way back there. It's way over there. And your heart goes, not yet. I'm talking a little personal experience here. But as this draws to you, you start going, I can do this. This is going to happen. This can happen. And you'll get that kind of cosmic connection, divine connection to your heart says, yeah, you can have this. And this is the pathway. And you'll find your life turning and it will draw to you. You do the work and you get the promise. I think that was pretty close. How'd I do, Georgia?
Yep, I definitely clear now. Thank you so much.
Okay, Georgia. Any other comments? We covered a very important subject tonight. When I say environment, your inner environment, y'all understanding that what I'm talking about? I'm not talking about this room I'm in. Though this room does influence my space, me being here, I've got to have a peaceful room, a quiet room, a relatively neat room. You can't see behind the counter. I'm kind of a messy desk person, so I clear this space. And but it's my environment and I'm familiar with it and I'm comfortable in it. That's not what I'm talking about. The environment I'm talking about in this chapter is in here, this environment back here. Does it have peace? And what do you do to get peace when your heart, your mind environment is not peaceful? That was me. And that's why it took me months to grab a hold of what this chapter is teaching. Because it wasn't until I got later in this book that I started learning, and going through the book a few times, that I started learning how to deal with the things that I had no peace with. That's the real work of this book. What we're doing now is laying a principle so that you can work towards it. Okay? Botna, Bob Z. Bob Z, you are absolutely correct. I'm talking about the sympathetic versus the parasympathetic nervous system. Any other discussions? No discussion. The environment is critical. There's got to be more to it than just my ramblings. This is big deal.
We have a question from Ruth.
Okay.
I just asked her to, she's just got a mute. Okay, now we have a lot of hands.
Yes. Hi, can you all hear me?
Oh, I hear
Yes.
you now. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for this wonderful discussion, the space and your kindness. I really appreciate that you're offering a space to truly process these concepts that sometimes read in the book aren't quite, as clear. And I just want to say I appreciate that, first of all. And then
So true.
yes. And then now hearing about the environment, and for those of us who have a very overactive mind and sometimes are in constant fight or flight mode, I have found that a lot of inner child work has helped me settle the whys that I just haven't been able to kind of push aside to become the greater version of myself, if that makes sense. It's just that the hunger of the whys, the inner child in me has kept me somewhat in that vicious, needy cycle, right? Until I've managed to listen and be with, sit in it, and then create those new neural pathways for peace to exist.
Yes.
Now,
We
yeah,
go
please.
into the inner child work later on in this book.
Oh,
yes.
thank you so much. Okay, I tried
It
to
gets
go.
introduced. We don't go into how-tos and stuff. I will discuss in depth how I overcame my child work. Because
Wonderful.
you're absolutely right. I was dealing with shame goes back way back, and they were like barking dogs. They wouldn't shut up. And first I had to deal with that because this is part of my mental environment. My house is peaceful. I have a very blessed house, but I wasn't at peace inside. And so first I had to deal with that environment. And then I found what was at the root of this. And what I found at the root of that was the inner child work. And when
Yes.
I took care of that, my world changed. And that clearly is my second greatest healing, is
That
the
is
healing of my child work.
absolutely beautiful. Thank you for clarifying that. I've read this book a couple of times in years past. And for some reason, I'm getting the sense that I wasn't entirely ready to get there. I had to overcome illness in other ways, but still applying some of these principles. And I so recognized the need of that inner child wounded person inside of me that I actually became a life consultant to heal my inner child because
Right.
I couldn't trust people to walk me through it. I had to become a teacher so I could teach myself.
Yes,
Anywho, so I
understand that because it's so painful. You don't want anybody to see that pain.
Exactly. Thank you for validating that. So I'm looking forward to this now, and thank you for just saying that. And then one quick comment is that I haven't sometimes been managing to stay awake for the meditations, but what's really interesting is that I'll play it anyway and I'll go back to sleep and then I have vivid dreams and I wake up invigorized. So I just want to put that out there.
Okay, thank you. That was good, Ruth.
Thank you.
Is that Starflower?
Yes.
Hello, Star. Good to meet you.
Hi. Thank you. This is my first time here. Can you explain again? So when that atom gets crushed in the wave and it going in and out during the day, someone says something about it's going back and forth during the day. I'm not understanding completely.
I'm not sure what your question was again, please.
So someone mentioned about, so you had mentioned at the beginning about the atom and the wave being like crushed or something?
Right. Oh, I understand. Collapsing the wave is the expression that's used. It is a quantum fact. It's science that the electrons are no longer modeled as a solar system. They're modeled as a field with a nucleus. And when a scientist get down with their electron microscopes and they observe it, by observing it, it's the energy of the mind observing the particle, the wave, it stops and it becomes a particle. They've done it through the slit experiment, and they've done it through the electron microscopes. Observation affects the field, and observation collapses the field, is what it's termed, and it becomes a subatomic particle. Our human experience has the ability to collapse a field by observation. I just know that's science. That's not woo-woo. That's not mysticism. That's science. That means that your mind has an effect on the energy field about your life. That's not woo-woo. That's not mysticism. That's not religion. That is now hard quantum science. Now, what that means to us is that as we learn to practice our awareness and our, I call it attentive awareness. In other words, don't be like a passenger in the car that doesn't remember where they went. Be attentive, pay attention, but don't use this. Become attentive is the word I like to say. In that attentiveness, you are recording your experience. You are a witness and observer. And in that attentiveness, you can create your intention, tune to it, and it will help shape the universe around you. It just does. It's not woo-woo, it's science, it's fact. You can change your health, you can change your work environment, you can change your personality. That's what this is about, breaking the habit of being yourself. And if it can change this hard PTSD crazy cancer-ridden veteran and make him this teacher, then I'm telling you, sweetheart people, you can do it too. But it's called collapsing the wave.
So this would also be the same, like if someone was saying something negative to you, then they're throwing out a certain type of energy and reshaping the environment. So if I'm feeling like, you know, the guy the disruptor that was coming out and saying things, you know, that was uncomfortable. So that was
I take two approaches to that question. First of all, why is it uncomfortable? It's uncomfortable because I'm identifying with my body. When I practice not identifying with my body, but with my energy field, he is not liking my body. He doesn't know my energy because my energy is a particle of divine light. And anybody who gets the glimpse of that can't help but love me because he's loving the divine when they do. So part of it, I make an effort because I'm not always, I don't walk on water. Some days I have those special days, you know, where I react. So, well, anyway, I have those days when I sit down to meditate and I'm like this, nothing happens. So I'm not, you know, but I have enough days when I sit down and I cook in that light and it's like, oh my goodness. And that's what I'm talking about. So what I like to practice is that I have those times when people don't like me. I'm kind of a boisterous person. And I just remind myself, it's this that they don't like, not that. That is a whole nother thing. That is a divine light. That is who and what I am. One of the things I like to practice along this thing, just to prove it to myself, is when I go shopping, we have a big Walmart shopping center around here and other shopping centers, and it gets kind of crazy. Every now and then, I like to attempt to put on love. And before I go in, I'll take a few deep breaths and I'll just start turning on love. Not I love you or that or that. No separation, just I love. And I like turning on a light. You ever notice when you turn on a light, it doesn't matter what's on the room, what's in the room, it lights everything. You turn on the light and you just love. And I like to see who resonates with that love as I walk through the store. Most people just walk by me, their minds are busy, their hands are busy. But every now and then someone will walk by me and I feel that little connection. And I turn and look and they're looking at me like, what was that? I just smile. I said, oh, it's, and I just turn more, and it just feels so good to make that passing connection in love. If people can offend you by passing, why not practice loving them in passing? And so I do. So both of those things are real. There are people who don't like this boisterous kind of guy, and that's okay. It's just that they don't like, and okay. But when I turn on the love, that's cool. Bob Z, I see your hands up.
Sorry, I was muted. I think I'm unmuted now.
Yeah, I got you, Bob. Good to meet you.
Yeah, good to meet you too, Ray.
You've got that other WhatsApp page, right?
Yeah, a little biohacking.
Yeah, I like that page. You do some good stuff on that. If you get to meet this guy, get on his page. He's got a great WhatsApp page. Some good stuff. Go ahead.
So there's foreign energy, and other schools of thought will talk about foreign energy. Do you have any thoughts on people that pick up foreign energy, and will this process get rid of it, or is there need to be something else?
There are every level of energy in the spectrum. And my question to you is, what are you resonating with? That is what you will tune to. But while I'm thinking about it, thank you for reminding me of something. On the chat, I've just posted the link to my WhatsApp for all the new people here who want to meet me and talk to me and say hi to me throughout the weeks. Push that. Now back to your question, Bob. Thank you for reminding me of that. I know that there are energies out there. I come from a family that used to dabble in some of the, let's just call it dark stuff. And I dedicate myself to not go near it. And I found that it's really easier than it looks because people start getting fascinated with it. And I just say, don't tune to it. You go to the light, you go to the frequency you're tuning to. Just like we were talking about in the intention. If you tune to that intention, it will draw to you and you will draw to it. Just do that. Don't play with the shadows. Don't argue with it. Just go, no, I don't do that today. And start tuning into the light. It really is overcome that easily. And I've got some interesting stories of spiritual warfare that I did just doing that. Absolutely, unashamedly blessed. And that's how you overcome it.
I like that. I
Yeah.
like that, Ray. That's a good idea.
Yeah, it really, I've sat with people who have no intention except to curse me. And I just turn on the light. I says, I know, I know how to do this. And I just get as bright in me as I know how. And it's a what happens. And now's not the time to go into those stories, but that's how I do it. And it's effective. Don't tune into it. Tune into your light. Tune into the light. And you'll get a world of difference. You got it? Lisa, I see your hand up. Thank you for being patient.
Lisa, you can unmute.
I've never done that before, so there you go.
Good job. Oh, so you're new to this group, huh, Lisa?
I am. I'm very
Welcome
excited.
to the party.
Thank you. I had a tragedy in my life in 2012, 2013, and I saw Joe Dispenza shortly after, within the next year or so in California.
So when you say saw him, you said you went to a conference. That's what you mean.
I was in person, yeah, at this conference, and that's where I learned about him, and I've been kind of following and learning about him since. But like others, I've had some trouble physically embracing that idea of the ideal self. Just this weekend, I made a breakthrough in that I realized that it's iterative because I'm still learning. I've been studying all this stuff, but I'm still learning what I don't want And I'm learning what those boundaries are and learning how to enforce them. And that is a big part of that. It's not just that you can run away from it or that all of a sudden new things will happen. It's like practical, visceral, concrete work sometimes that you have to do.
Yes.
And I am so proud of myself because one of the things that I've had is this tremendous fear of letting go of this incredibly unhealthy person. And I realized, why am I been so afraid? And curious to you, do you have any thoughts about why are we so afraid to let go of those elements of our life that once we realize they're so toxic?
Well, it's a really easy answer than it looks like. Mostly we're afraid because it's unfamiliar, unknown, and we don't have answers to the unknown. And our analytical mind insists on answers. And when you don't have answers, it's really hard to choose. But one of the words, right? One of the words that Dr. Joe uses pretty often is surrender. That word defeated me. You want to know why it took me a year to have my breakthrough? Because I would not surrender that head of mine. I just wouldn't. I just couldn't. It took me a year to finally get familiar enough. There's that word I just used on you, of going in that space and almost doing it, and almost doing it, and almost doing it, and almost doing it, and just not letting go until one time I went in so deep, I was already on the floor, flashing around like, and I finally was able to have my event. So
what I'm hearing is that at some point through this process, iterative or whatever, consistency, the feeling of love and being that he describes, which I would say is like the feeling I felt for my son, that will be so powerful that you can overcome some of these fears.
right.
That's kind of what I'm hearing.
A lot of those fears go back many years. I call them barking dogs. They were always, I tell them to shut up, and they wouldn't shut up. I call them barking dogs because that's how they felt. Like, dogs just annoy them. Just yak, 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 like, shut up, And so I call them barking dogs. I had to learn to let go of them. I call it forgiveness. I am not forgiving them. I am releasing. I am redefining the term forgiveness as release. Let go.
I love that. I love that. Because they can think whatever they want.
Who cares?
Doesn't matter.
Yes.
Because we no longer have to deal with that.
Yeah.
If we release.
Our responsibility is to let go. The events of the past are written in the book of life. What's not written is our relationship. That's the event. We're here. What's this energy between here? That's not written. That's us holding on to it.
Right.
Let go. Golly, right? Well, you just let go of
it. I love that. Thank you.
That's how it felt to me. That's why I'm dramatizing.
No, it's beautiful.
Because I had a lot of years of, and I was an angry veteran, and I expressed it, and it cost me jobs and relationships, all that kind of stuff. And I just, and I took meditation classes, I took hypnosis, I took all that stuff, and I was pretty heady. I'm a pretty smart guy, but I never learned how to do this. No one ever taught me forgiveness in a way that I got it. I don't even know if they tried to. I don't know. I just know I didn't get it. So somebody once asked me, so I got all this noise in my head, which one do I deal with? You deal with the one that's in your face. Reinterpret the one that's in your face instead of because it feels like accusing. What it's doing is today my day to heal? The one that's in your face is saying, can you heal me today?
Oh, wow. I
Because that's
see.
because you're tuned to it. You've got this moment where you're connected to that event. Instead of shutting it up and putting it back in the box, use this momentary connection to say, I release you, I forgive you. You are not forgiving the event, because the event might not even be a person. It could be a car accident. Could be a fire job. Could be, doesn't have to do with anything out here. It
Right.
has to do with releasing the energy to this event.
Oh, wow.
I forgive you. I release you. What you're doing is forgiving your heart. You're releasing your heart. I had to do that for months. You heard me say something about inner child stuff. I had to do it for months. But it's one thing at a time, one at a time. Just,
Okay.
I release you, I release you, I release you, and let it diminish. What this does is its job, biologically, neurologically, is to remember what you put value on. If you put value on it, you're gonna have to deal it again. Our job in this is to diminish this. And you diminish it when you forgive it, when you release it. Okay, I'm letting you go now. I'm letting you go. I'm doing this now. And he says, what about me? I know. I release you. I release you. I'm doing this now. Have something to replace that accusation. Did you see what I'm doing now? I've got this higher, this new intention. You ought to see what I'm going to do now. I release you. I release you. I release you.
And thank you.
And in that, you'll find your heart will dare to love a little bit more.
Love yourself too more.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. That's pretty bold of you. I appreciate it. Ashima, I see your hand up. Thank you.
You need to unmute, Ashima.
Hi everyone. Hi Ray.
Hello.
So this is my first time in the group, and I'm basically new to this journey of awareness, rediscovering yourself, and all.
I hope you've enjoyed it so far.
I did, surely did. My question to you is: I'm very well aware I am of avoidant detachment style personality. So when you say that you have to let go, it's easy for me to let go, but the consequences of it, it's always that I have to face. And one thing is, whenever I let go, sometimes, it's very easy for me not to react at the first moment. But I guess my body is not attuned to it. So even my mind is saying, don't react, don't react. Sometimes my facial expression or certain body language doesn't follow what my brain says. So my question to you is, does these techniques work on avoidant detachment style people?
I don't know the details specifically, but let me dare a little bit of chat on that. What you're detaching, what you're releasing is the energy to the event. If you're having a threatening, unsafe event, I'm not saying be a mat and let somebody walk on you. I am not. You walk on me and this boy will get up in your face. I don't tolerate that stuff. I still got some of that in me. I am not saying that in any way. In fact, I will tell you, defend yourself, get safe. That's what those energy centers and adrenaline and cortisol, that's what you have them for. Is to be safe and to survive. What I'm saying is a heart thing. What I'm saying is that when you sit down, can you let go of this and have a peaceful moment so that your inner being can heal? Because right now, when you're like this, your energy is out there, and a big part of your energy is not healing your body, which is your body's primary program. When you go into that space, your body doesn't have to be told to heal. It just does it. It just, okay, heal mode. All this energy comes in and starts doing its healing thing. What we're dealing with is be safe. as I said earlier, I know some people work in some hard environments and live in some hard places. Do what it takes to be safe. Don't be somebody's mat to walk in. There's a big difference between humble and meek. Don't be somebody's cockroach to step on and abuse. You have a right to be the royal being that you already are. You really are. I've seen it. Man, if you could see people like I do once in a while, not all the time, you would know that you truly are a royal being.
It's definitely like some of the experiences that I have experienced in past has created a certain personality traits, and I'm very aware of it. And just being so avoidant of certain particular things, I feel like with time, I have created these boundaries or walls against me. And if someone tried to break in or say something, I get very defensive.
My first military PTSD class, this is a hoot. They didn't take long the military VA didn't take long knowing me. They led me and sat me down in this PTSD training class that was starting. No, there was probably about 12, 15 veterans there. And so we're waiting, and it's along one of these folding tables, we're all sitting at a table and this teacher walks in and she goes, does one of those knocking things to get everybody's attention. She introduces herself, says, the first thing I want you to do is look across the table to the person sitting across from you and congratulate them on their PTSD. Half the class just did that and went, what? And looked at her like, you're nuts. This PTSD has been driving us nuts all our life, destroying our life, and you want us to congratulate ourselves for it? She says, yes. And so nobody said a word. Forget that. I looked at my watch and I went, okay, how much longer before I leave? She says, you don't understand. Let me tell you the purpose of PTSD. She said the purpose of PTSD is an optimal survival mode the person. That is why maybe you jumped fastest, ran fastest, fought harder, did things that you otherwise couldn't do first. The reason why you're here just might be because of the survival drive of your PTSD. Now think about it. That is not an accident. Your PTSD is not a fault. It is your hero. It helped you survive unbearable circumstances. Congratulate yourself for surviving. Now, this is not about the evil of PTSD. It's about learning to let go of the habit of PTSD. My world changed in that 1 hour teaching. I no longer was a crippled animal that was crazy out of his mind. I was a hero to myself for surviving insane world. So my first suggestion to you is find a way to congratulate your own PTSD. What this is about is learning to not have it chronic. PTSD is just stress on steroids. And stress is not bad. Stress is required for your survival. PTSD was required in the moments of your life and could still be present. You may still be living in environments so dangerous. I suggest you find a way out. Maybe you don't have a way out. Find a way to sit in your chair in a moment of peace and heal. I don't find any criticism of survival. Where would we be without it, right? You're not.
Yeah, it's just when you develop
Right.
those traits. And now that, I'm with people that are good sometimes, but still being that avoidant attachment personality traits, I sometimes come across as like I don't care about things just because I don't show or act on them. And just sometimes my face is, I'm thinking about something else, but my face is, that's what I said in the first place. My body is not attuned with my mind.
Yes.
So
You're holding on to things that are hidden in your mind. As you do this work and you start exercising your heart center, those things will start coming up. And the solution is the same. I don't care if you did it, they did it, or you were just in a place and the sky fell on you. The solution is the same, because it's not the event or the person, the place, or the thing. It's your reaction to it. And you just want to let it go. Let that energy go so your heart can heal. It's the same solution for, since it's not person, place, or thing, or time, or anything. It's just your reaction to it. We will exercise the heart of letting go. You will hear me talk about it all year through all books. It's all the same solution. And that terrible hard word for me was surrender. When you learn to surrender this guy and let him sit down. But I learned a trick about that. I learned that when I go back here and I find a peaceful place in my awareness, he just automatically sits down. I don't have to fight with him to surrender. He just sits down and says, oh, okay. Half the work is over when you learn the secret of awareness and space.
I could just practice and sit your mind down. Hopefully your body will follow.
Right. And learn to let go.
Give time some time.
Give time.
Boy, you said that right. Oh, AQK. Good day, sir. Good to hear your voice today. What's up? What's on your mind?
Oh, this is Ashima's husband in the background.
Okay.
Yeah, he's listening. So he was just telling me, give time some time.
Give time some time. That's a good one.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Ray, for taking time. And I will be keeping in touch with you, following your classes more and more. And hopefully I'll see some good outcome out of it.
As we go through the chapters and we start with chapter 7, you're going to understand why I call it. If it's so easy, then why is it so hard?
It is very hard. I give that to you right now. Hopefully.
Okay.
Thanks.
And who's next with their hands?
Ray, can I speak?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, how are you? Looking good.
I'm doing good.
Yeah. All right. I am listening to you, and the way you deliver lecture is awesome. And from last chapter to this chapter, when I connect all the dots, now I knew that what we think, okay, we become the same. And what our mind, when we imagine, our mind don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but our mind don't know if we do something practically or we imagine and do it, I think it might be equal to the mind. So from now on, I learned this from you. So I will imagine which is I'm going to do and then follow the direction and do that. So is it I'm getting what you are teaching to us? Is it I'm on the right track? So that's what I'm asking.
I think that's very close. Let's say you have a job in mind. Men, we're all job oriented kind of shy. You have a new job. What do you do to prepare for a job? Okay. What does a guy do to prepare for a new job? He studies for it. He makes sure he has the skill and the knowledge. He practices it. He looks forward to it. I mean, this is all we're talking about, except even on a deeper heart level. It's Saturday night and you have a sweetheart that you're going to pick up and go to dinner with. I mean, tell me you're not rehearsing that in your mind. You're thinking about everything you're going to say. You're talking about the feeling of romance with the connection with a lady that you're going to share time with. Oh my goodness, that's a heart thing. It's very similar that we do this all the time, but we do it unconsciously. We just kind of fall into it. What we're going to learn to do is to do this consciously, creatively, deliberately, so that we can sit down and say, I need this. I've got this sickness in my body, and everybody says I'm going to be dead in a few years. That's what they told me. In 2009, I was told I had 3 to 5 years. fully metastatic, malignant metastatic melanoma cancer and all the other cancers was killer. Get my affairs in order. I was angry at him for a long time until I learned that everybody in my group died besides me. He was trying to be nice. He wasn't just being sarcastic. In his experience, fully metastatic, malignant metastatic cancer, once it gets in the body and starts spreading, it kills. They can treat it, but people die from it. I didn't. I fought it. I managed it for 9 years until I did the change that I learned in this book. I changed who I was. So it's like that. Everything you said was right, and I'm saying it. Take that discussion and make it more heartfelt. Fall in love with that future image until it's like a Saturday night date, and it just stirs your heart in the hope and the reality of what that few hours of romance will be like with your loved one.
So every day I have to practice this, yeah?
Oh yeah, because until it's familiar in this will argue against it. You practice it to make it familiar here so that those neural networks become familiar and common here, or otherwise this guy is going to say, okay, you got this, okay. And because remember, the job of the cortex, the neurological job of the cortex is to remember what you value. You get in a car accident, you go, ah, you have just burned networks in your brain because you put a lot of value in your survival.
So can you tell us what's your way to practice every day? We will follow the same, like what you suggest us, how much time we should make a fix.
I can tell you what I did, but I'm a realist. For people who get up and they go to work and they have families and children and dogs and it's hard to replace what I did. I got up. You're talking to a guy that lost jobs because he couldn't get up in the morning. I was fighting a disease that says, I'm going to kill you. And I said, like, hell you are. And I got up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, every morning, without exception, for years. Because I am taken on the darkness. And I don't surrender. Not even to the darkness. And so but I really didn't have money. So I didn't buy a lot of meditations. Right now I've got a library of them, but because it's been so many years and I'd buy one, then I'd buy another as the money came up. Well, anyway, so I bought the first 3 Blessing of the Energy Centers, which we will go through in this book. And then I bought the meditations for this book, which are listed as Body Parts and Change, and one called Water Rising. And I didn't understand space when I first got this book. And so I just stuck to the Blessings of the Energy Centers, and I did them multiple times a day, morning, afternoon, and evening for the first couple years. I really did. I had nothing else to do with my life. I was so weak. All I could do is sit here. And I said, you can't have, I would go at it. And that's all I had was my stubborn. I didn't have the knowledge. I just knew that I was not going to give in to this. It wasn't, if I lose, it's not because of me not trying. And so, so I just did the Blessings of the Energy Centers every morning, every afternoon, well, most afternoons, and every night. I did again and again and again and again. And I learned the secret. I didn't even know what I was doing, except I did the work. You do the work, you get the promise. And in doing the work, I discovered the idea of familiarity. What happens when your mind gets so familiar with something, it gets bored? You get 2 doors to go through.
Agree.
One is you get out. The second one is you raise your mind and you look over the fence of your boredom. What is flow? You ever heard a sportsman talk about, I went into flow in my sports craft? Runners get a runner's high where they take off running and they can't even feel the body more. They're just kind of looking around, they're in flow. Certain extreme sports, the snow skiers going down a mountain slide on their snow skis, doing 40, 50 miles an hour. Shh. If they hesitate, they collide with a tree. They're moving intuitively. Martial arts don't see their movements. They have practiced them, rehearsed them 1,000 times. They're in that semi-conscious state. They have taken boredom and gone through the door. That is the magic here.
Yeah.
When you can do this so much that this is so familiar with it, it doesn't want to pay attention to it anymore. This guy shuts down and is quiet. Your body brings in all its stress energies and starts healing. And now your consciousness is free to create. That's creating your environment.
I just ask one question. If someone have a 15 minutes or 10 minutes, in a day, so what you can suggest them how to practice like?
Well, there's a few short answers. There is a meditation by Dr. Joe called Morning and Evening Meditations. It's really nice. The morning one is kind of busy for me, and I do it sometimes, but I never get off the ground. There's no takeoff for me on that one, but it's nice. The evening one I really like. It really helps me put the evening away. If I go to bed sometimes and my head is just like a whole list of shit. It's so much for my language. And that one is great to put away the day. Now, I have alternatives too. I found on the internet a selection of binaural beats, and it's just sound. I have a selection of handpan music. Cool sound is just absolutely. What's so good about it is that there's no association with anything. If you have never heard of handpan music, look it up. It is the most, for me, it rings my meditative bell. It doesn't take me seconds to go into alpha listening to that stuff. And that's great for those times when I just want to sit down for a few minutes and I turn that on and I just let the sound wash over me and I go in full listening mode and I move out of beta into alpha and I just, and it's got this.
It's Ant-Man?
Hand,
okay,
and they play a metal pan.
Okay.
Hand pan music.
That's good for meditation. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. It's trippy as all get out. How's that for a technical term?
Yeah, thank you so much.
That's what I do. And there's the other thing I do is I've got, with my collection of meditations, I have copied off sections of those meditations with just the breathing part. And I've made a collection of those breathings. Like in the opening of this, I got on at like 5:30 and some people joined me and I just played breathing introduction to the meditations for a while. And that gives me a little bit of start to meeting all of you.
That's good.
That's what I do. Okay.
Thank you for your insightful knowledge. Thank you for sharing with us.
You're welcome. Shanti Williams. Hello. Good to meet you. Your hands up. Unmute, please. Shanti?
All right, there we go.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you for waiting.
No problem. You may have answered this, but if you could just again go over how, I know you said you had the time because you had time off because you weren't working. You did it 3 times a day. You woke up at 4. How many hours were you meditating in the morning? Like, can you give us the amount of time and then how long it took for you to start seeing the results? And like what, and maybe if you can also tell us what was the first thing that you noticed that told you were getting results?
That's a good question. That's the good question there. Starting from where I started, like I said, I was a PTSD cancer patient coming off of crazy drugs. And even though it's been 9 years and I've been off the drugs a long time, I was still weak in the body and weak in the mind. I was trying to wake my mind up, but I was still learning. So that's where I was coming from. And I found the movie and I started doing The blessing of the energy centers 1, 2, and 3. Those are about 45 minutes to close to an hour. And I would sit here and I would just do it by rote. I would sit there and do what he said, do what he said, do what he said, because nothing in me was turned on. I mean, just you'd have to know me. I mean, nothing was turned. And it's not because I've been involved in other groups trying to learn to meditate and stuff, but it was all this, you know what I mean? Focus, focus. I knew how to focus. My career was in electronics, microelectronics. I had a magnifying glass to work parts. I mean, I could focus, but my heart was off because of the stuff I mentioned. So I started with blessing of the energy centers. And how long did it start before I got feedback? It was close to 6 months. Well, maybe 4 or 5 months. And my first feedback was aha moments. I did not have a community. I had no one to talk to. I didn't know anybody that did this work. I looked on the internet and somehow I just couldn't find stuff. And so I just read the books and did the meditations. And somewhere around 4 or 5 months, I didn't write it down because I didn't know the significance at the time. And I started getting those lessons that come back in your head that go, oh, that's what he meant.
Yeah.
You ever read the book 2 or 3 times and you pick it up again and the 4th time you read something like, oh, I didn't see that before. It was, I don't know how many times I read this book because I would read it cover to cover and then I got the book, You Are the Placebo, and I'd read it cover to cover. Then I'd read this one again, back and forth, back and forth. And it was probably 4 or 5 months and a few times through this book when I started getting aha moments. The really sweet stuff came somewhere around 6 to 8 months, and I started becoming aware of my spirit guides. That was the sweetest. That's when I knew I was breaking through. That's when my heart was starting to be healed. That's when I was learning how to release that I mentioned. I hadn't had victory over it. I still wasn't done with it, but I was learning how to release the barking dogs. And then I became aware. They weren't talking to me yet, but I became aware of them. It's just, you ever sit in quiet and just become aware of the presence, a loving presence that just says, it just gives you courage to just, you're getting there, you're getting there. That's what it's like. It was around the 10th month, remember the 12th month is when I got my healing, that they began talking to me. Now, during this time, I learned numerous little things that we'll cover throughout this book, because I've gone through this book many times by then. And I called one my beloved. That was a feminine energy. It felt feminine to me. Don't beat me up over it. And the other one was a male energy. I called him my teacher. The feminine energy always treated me kindly. I got this soft, gentle awareness from her. She helped me direct different things. And my teacher was more like me. Hey, what are you doing? If I did it wrong, I get this actual physical poke in my neck. Like, what? Hey, think about that. I really did. So when I had my big event I mentioned, they were there. They were there helping me, guiding me through that healing event.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
So you just do it and you sincere as your life depends on it. And it's all about you. Don't worry about it. It's the forgiveness isn't about someone else. It's about you letting go. It's about you freeing your heart. And it's not about you being guilty, someone else being guilty, or the sky falling and you're just in the wrong place, like in a car accident. It's you letting go of the energies you hold on to, and slowly but surely your heart will heal. That's how it's done.
One last question for you.
Okay.
How long you got healed in, you said in the 12th month, and then how long was it before you decided that you can go back to work? Like,
I'm 75 years old.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was
You
healed
already
when
retired?
I was healed when I was 70. I was diagnosed with cancer. I was 60 years old. I was healed the year I turned 70. I didn't go back to work.
Okay. Okay.
Um, I'm not sure of anybody who would hire a person who is an active cancer patient. I mean, at any given time, I could cost their insurance $500,000, or hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I don't know if, just I'd have to lie on the employment form, because I was going to the VA twice a year at that time. Just and getting exams and all kind of stuff. So I don't work. I have military disability that I'm living off of. Social Security, military disability. Did that cover you, Shanti?
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ian, I haven't heard from you tonight.
You can unmute, Ian.
Thanks.
Ian.
So yeah, I appreciate. I think I've picked up hints so far, and I did join late, so I missed some of it. But when you talked about basically like in some psychology, they talk about like shadow work, right? And in engaging with or acknowledging maybe some of the for lack of a better statement, like the darker impulses, or just acknowledging that there are other dimensions of I guess inflection or interest or presence in ourselves that might not be healed yet. And I was curious, how do you center how is it that you engage with embracing that without, like earlier you mentioned, like you don't really entertain the shadows in a certain way, but you're able to still like when it comes to negotiating with some of the barking dogs, for example, like you're able to kind of acknowledge that you have a different intention now and you have something to replace, and that was a way that you can kind of still kind of give presence to some of the things that might be tugging at you.
Okay. I
yeah,
was involved in a lot of craziness growing up and my pre-dispensa stuff. I know there's all kind of complicated ritual work that can be done. In doing Dr. Joe's work, I find it simpler than all that stuff. It's all about you forgiving you letting go of it. Nothing is holding this in your face except you. It's not a demon, it's not ghost, it's not spirits, it's you holding an energy tuned to you. Let it go and it will blow away. It's easier said than done. And like I said, if it's so easy, then why is it so hard? But that is the answer. So when it gets in your face, redefine it. It is not, it may sound like, look like, feel like it's accusing you what a terrible person you are. I just learned to redefine it. Oh, it's your turn to heal? Okay, I will forgive you. Because I'm talking to the energy, which is me. I will forgive you, my energy, and I will release you so that you can begin your work of healing me. And think of it, okay, a little maleness. Think of it, you're sitting on a bench as an adult, and a little boy comes up to you crying and throwing a fit. Do you care why he's crying? Or is your heart big enough to just love that child enough to give him peace?
Right. Instead of treating the aggression of the fit that's being there as the thing to deal with, it's finding the love for the child or the cause behind it and honoring the impetus for it that's bringing it to you in the first place as well.
Yes.
Okay.
It's there because you're holding on to it. It wouldn't be there if you weren't holding on to it. So when you forgive it, you're forgiving you. I forgive you. I release you. As you release it, you're releasing you. I don't care why I'm holding on to it. Stop it.
What are ways that you are able to sort of, I mean, some of it's just through practice, I suspect, but like maintaining intonation, I guess is what I'd say, as far as like, so that you're not being pulled in by the other thing in terms of how you interface with it, or like there was a time where I worked as a volunteer, like suicide intervention person, and like there's a part where you're supposed to kind of match where things are at least to empathize or orient, and then you can kind of more effectively walk them towards a better path.
Right. Always be honest of where you're starting. Think of the GPS map. The GPS, you'll say, I want to go there, and they'll say, where are you now? Always be honest of where you are now. I'm a mess. Look at what I'm doing. I can't let go of this. And it's in my, and I just learned, okay, this is what I am doing this. I am doing this. Okay. I forgive you. I forgive you. Remember, I'm saying that to that which is my heart. I forgive you. I release you. I forgive you. Something to remember. If you release it, what are you releasing it to? And what are you replacing it with? Remember, this guy doesn't like to be not busy. It needs its choice, particularly early in this work. So if you release it and let this empty space in your mind will go, I don't see nothing, and then go right back to it. I have learned to release it and say, see what I'm doing now? I've got this thing. Look at this light that I'm tuning to. And you tune to that light the best you can. I was early in that. I didn't have it fully developed, but I had a dream. I have a dream. Does that sound familiar? And I would release it. And when it would accuse me, it says, look, I forgive you. I'm doing this now. I did this. This is how I lived. And I slowly quieted these guys down. With time, my barking dogs my barking dogs stopped barking. They were kind of like back here. But the reason they didn't go away is because what we touched on earlier, because my core pain was my child. After these guys got quiet and backed away, I found that as I was learning this work, I got free enough and honest enough to start looking at my inner self and say the root of all this started when I was a child. And I had to start doing child work, which we're just in the second chapter. We're not even supposed to talk about that in this chapter. That's above our pay grade at this point. But that is the root. Why did I do this in the first place? Because of the pain in my heart, because of the child. And that has to be dealt with ultimately.
Thank you, Ray. I appreciate that. It's really helpful to see another perspective on it.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Rosa, one more question.
You can unmute, Rosa.
Hi, Ray.
Thank you for being patient. I just want to get those new names in.
Oh yes, no, I understand. And I'm not. I know we may be short on time too, so I'll quickly say this. It is so interesting that we were talking about the environment, and we had some people in between who were verbally saying, singing something, or they used the whiteboard to type things, which were not nice. But what I realized is that when Anna was speaking to you, they 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 took the print screen and they posted that on the chat. And then at that time I was like, okay, so it's not safe to show so basically what I'm trying to highlight is that it was such an interesting environment. And then I was like, okay, I'll not be on camera. And then my mind's like, that's why when I walk on the road I have like a bitch face on, because then anyone can take advantage or feel like, hey, she's an easy one. So my mind immediately went there, and I was like, so how we are like, okay, so I was like, the home is the only place where we can let things go. But when I'm out on the street, or when I'm at work, and at work there are some people with who I feel unsafe, I have to be like, have that bitch, like a bitch, like unpleasant, like, I'm strong, if you come to me I'll punch you face.
Yep. Sorry.
Yeah. And even I was like, oh, maybe I'll not be on camera. And I was like, but we are trying to be safe. And yeah, so should when we walk on the street have a bitchy face on, or is it that and you said do not tune into that frequency, so does that mean that we walk with awareness but be ready to have that face on?
You feel as you look. So you're not being healthy to yourself if you're carrying an aggressive face. I know that feeling. I used to walk like Mr. Tough Guy, and there is no peace in my heart while I am walking like Mr. Tough Guy. Now, I know there are unsafe environments. Do what it takes to be safe. I won't criticize your work to survive. Okay? So if looking like you're a tough lady helps you survive, do it. You'll never hear me criticize that. And you were right. When you come home and sit to meditate, can you take it off? That's the ultimate goal. Do what it takes to survive, protect yourself, protect your family. And when you come home, can you take it off? Can you have a peaceful home without coming home still with that funny face? I couldn't. I was chronic that way. I was just angry 24/7 and I didn't know how to let go. What I'm going to help you do is find that place here now to create that environment in your head so that you can put that environment on. And so for an hour a day, your body can heal. When you're walking around like the tough lady, you're not healing, you're in survival. The energies are out here, out in your hands, out in your survival, out in your stress mode. Half your life force is keeping you safe. That's not a bad thing. That's why you have those gifts, to be safe. But when you come home and sit here, can you turn it off?
And it was just so interesting that our chat was about the environment, and this sort of presented itself, because I'm like, okay, now I'll not be on video, but then I was like, no, I don't want to give that the power, and it was really nice.
Yeah, it is a normal, that's why we have those three energy centers. You know, the first one is body, environment, time, so that we can be alert and survive. That's why we have cortisol and adrenaline, so that we can do what it takes to survive. These are body things. This is how we were made to survive. It's fine, do it. But when you sit down, can you turn it off? Can you go into that environment, that energy field environment, and allow time for your body to spend a little bit of energy healing instead of being like this all day long? That's the lesson. This environment, I know the world's adversarial. I lived it. I was part of it. I was the adversarial. You know, what I've learned though is as I healed this is no longer adversarial. And the funny thing happened is I am in a different world out here, and I don't draw those challenges to me anymore. I just don't. I'm just a goofy old man and no one cares.
Thank you.
You know, so you keep that beautiful smile when you can. And when you have to have the tough face, that's what it's for. Survive. Don't everybody like that sweet smile? She needs to wear that more often. Okay. Okay, we've been doing this for a while. I want to thank everybody for coming. That conversation made this recording worthwhile. That's why I said, please let this be a discussion group. Okay, I'm going to end the recording and take a break, and we're going to do Blessing of the Energy Center 1. And I'll play the introduction. Hold on.